everybody. Happy Friday. We're going to give a few minutes for a few people to filter in. So to start off, thank you so much to start for all of you that attended our virtual travel career summit this week. It was a crazy week, not just because of the virtual summit, because it's a crazy week all over the world right now, right? And especially in our industry. And so we thought it would be super appropriate to end this week with a little bit of a conversation on mindset and things, and just a little bit of a tweak, right? So without further ado, let me kind of get everything set up. We had some music and stuff playing, and so I'll be honest with you and completely straight. I really struggled with this all week, because how do you talk about mindset in a time where we're having just this global pandemic, right? And then I felt like a total fraud, because I'll be honest, I had a little bit of a breakdown last night over all of this. How do you talk about cultivating mindset and staying positive when the whole world right now feels like it's totally falling apart? And so I want you to know, before we jump into all this, I am just as vulnerable as the rest of you are. I'm having just as hard of a time, because what we're going through is we're going through a collective trauma and a collective grief. And so I want you to keep that in mind when we go through all of this today, that there's no one-stop shop and quick answer to any of this. It is just a completely bonkers situation that we find ourselves in. So mindset feels tongue-in-cheek, but mindset is not a skill that you just acquire and you have. It's a skill that you work on continuously. It's a muscle that you have to keep flexing, and if you don't use it, you lose it. And so I wanted to start with reminding everybody on that today. So nobody here is perfect. Nobody here has the perfect mindset all of the time. So let me, without further ado, share my screen and kind of get started in this. So when I originally came up with this talk pre our coronavirus times, it was with the idea of talking about the lies travel advisors tell themselves. And we are going to get into that today, but in the last 48/72 hours, I kind of flipped this a little bit. So you're going to bear with me, because it's not as polished as maybe it normally will, but I think it's real. And I think it really speaks to what we're seeing right now. So to start, I want to draw a few parallels from deployment days. So a little bit of background on myself. I didn't really introduce myself to get started either. My name is Krystal Eicher, and I am the owner and founder of Serendipitous Traveler. I am an independent contractor with Kinship Vacations. I am a marketing strategist for Kinship Vacations. You saw me earlier this week talk about marketing strategies in a couple of different sessions. And then I also do a lot of mindset talks in our group. And why is mindset important? Mindset's important because at the end of the day, you are the foundation of everything. And I'm even going to stop sharing my screen for this. You are the foundation of everything. It all comes down to you. So you are the foundation of your relationships, and you are the only thing that you have control over. And if you aren't doing well, if you are not cultivating a little bit of personal growth in your own life, it doesn't matter what we're talking, if we're talking about the personal or the professional, it's going to suffer. And so an entrepreneurial journey is just as much a personal growth journey as it is a professional one. And so it's really important to continually be working on yourself, to continually be working on growth, because you either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And it's important to have a growth mindset if you're going to be in this business. But I think it's just important to have a growth mindset if you're going to be a human being on this planet, because we're always growing, we're always learning, and there's always something new to be done. We're always building on top of the next block. And so when I look at everything that is going on right now in the world, I can't help but draw a lot of parallels from deployment days. I've been a military spouse for 12 years now, and we've gone through multiple deployments and multiple things. And so last minute, I asked my kinship team, my mil spouse team, to show me a little bit of pictures of they're coming home and they're going away ceremonies with their spouses. Why do I think that this has got some parallels? When you're in a deployment, your stress and anxiety levels are at a heightened state. There are so many uncertainties and unknowns during a deployment. The most obvious being is your soldier coming home, but outside of that, there is a timeline uncertainty. There's uncertainty about when you get to speak to your spouse or your loved one next. There's uncertainty about how are you going to handle the next crisis or the next obstacle that comes along during the deployment. How do you handle kids missing their parents? How do you handle going through grief or going through trauma when you are on your own? And in that, what we're seeing right now, I think, is kind of it's kind of like that, but it's on a global scale now, right? We're not all, it's usually only it happens to like a small percent of the population, and it's hard for other people to really relate to that. But I think now, for the first time, we're all kind of going through that together. And what is amazing about military spouses is they have a certain kind of grit and they have a lot of resiliency. And we're going to talk about kind of how to build that kind of resiliency and why it's important, and not just in our own personal lives right now, but absolutely as an entrepreneur and in your business, how that can apply. I think that military spouses have a certain kind of grit when it comes to it. And I think it's because they have cultivated resiliency and they've cultivated this know-how to get through it. And the amazing thing about military spouses is that every time they go through a season like this, they come out on the other side of it a little bit stronger with a little bit more grit. And while nobody would ask to go through this, nobody would ask to go through trauma, nobody asks to go through it, but at the end of the day, it ends up being very serviceable to our community. And now I can see that even though this is hard right now, and even though it's really tough right now, getting through to the other side, you're going to have a level of grit that's going to be unparalleled. So trying to knock stuff down on my keyboard there. So what can you do to increase your resilience? And this is where it comes to be really important for you to not just try and do one of the things, but try and do all these things. And it's all about building your coping resources right now. In our community at Kinship, we're asking people to share what they're doing to cope right now. And coping comes from a lot of different ways. And there's the obvious exercise, meditation, yoga, some form of relaxation on a regular basis. But the important thing is to remember that you have to kind of, you have to incorporate some sort of a relaxation moment, because you have to remember stress has not just mental consequences. There's physiological reactions to stress in our bodies. We carry it. And the thing about it is, when you're in a situation like this, it is a heightened sense of stress and anxiety, and that affects your body and your mind, and it has lasting effects for a long period of time. So we have to talk about kind of coping mechanisms and how do you build your resiliency to get kind of through this with a little bit more strength, so to speak, at the end of it. So build your coping resources. Actually write them down. As crazy as that sounds, sometimes we need to have a physical reminder of the plan, because when our body goes into those super stressful feelings, it's fight or flight. And we sometimes don't have the critical thinking skills to really narrow down what it is that we need to do. Be flexible. Trees and shrubs that don't bend in the wind will break. And if you don't learn how to bend, you will too. Man, nothing has taught us more than this time in the travel industry, how to be nimble and pivot when we need to. 2 months ago, when all of this was really coming out, we saw a lot of people in our industry really be resistant to pivot early on. And I think they were some of the people that were hardest hit by all of this. and it's not that you have a crystal ball and you can predict all of the things coming down the line. Nobody could have predicted where this was going to go, or that the month of April would be canceled, or that we'd all be sitting here as we are today. But I think that people who have the ability to pivot when they can, who can be flexible when they can, I think that they're coming out this just with a little bit easier time than those of us that are super resistant to change and resistant to trying to figure out something else. Try to see setbacks as temporary. We all have the ability to jump to worst case scenario, and it's usually our default mode, but you have to kind of believe that you can come out the other side. And I listened to this great talk with Dave Ramsey podcast on this morning, and they even said, it's okay to have contingency plans for worst case scenario. In fact, it would behoove you to have that, especially as a travel entrepreneur, right? I think that it's important for us to have some real talk and have real conversations about our bottom line and our finances and our budgeting and what we're looking at and forecasting for the future, and having contingency plans if things don't work out the way we want them to. But at the same time, we have to believe that we're going to come out on the other side of this. We have to maintain a little bit of hope, and there's a fine line between hope and fear. And at the end of the day, hope is a choice, and you got to try and choose that when you can. It's not always easy, and it's not always our default mode. And so that's why you need to seek support. Find your pillars of strength, friends, family, colleagues, counselors, or spiritual leaders, and lean on them. And this is a really important side of this. And this is, again, not just for coronavirus times, but time in your professional entrepreneurial career. They say you are the 5 people you surround yourself with for a reason. Human beings by nature are very impressionable, and we are very sensitive to environments, some more so than others. Really, really be cognizant of your inputs during this time. Really, really be cognizant of who you are listening to, what you're consuming on social media, from friends and family, from the media, from television. What are you feeding into your mind, body, and soul right now? And find your people, and really don't be afraid to reach out at this time and ask for help and say, I am struggling. And again, not just during coronavirus times, but during your professional times as well. Cannot begin to tell you how many times I've been bailed out professionally by leaning onto other members of my team. My battle buddy, Ashley Matesh McCoy, has talked me off the ledge more times than I could count because I made a mistake, and she helped me brainstorm together solutions, or how do we get through this, or really just kind of talk me down and make me realize that it's really making it bigger in my head than it actually is. It's super important to find a support system during stressful times. And entrepreneurship by nature is already just a little bit stressful, but entrepreneurship during this season, even more so. The other side of it to remember, I put be flexible twice. So look forward and find your purpose. Most of us get stuck in inaction during stressful times, and it's hard to see, but you have to push yourself to do one thing. Just one step can make such a big difference. If you can, and it's not that you need to have a plan from A to Z, all lined up, all out before you do a thing. You really just need to figure out A to B. A to B is super important all the time. So that kind of leads me into the first lie that entrepreneurs tell themselves. Lie number 1, it's hard because I'm not good or because I'm doing it wrong. This is super prevalent in everything that we see in our lives, and I want to challenge it just a tiny bit. If you are uncomfortable, if you are in deep pain, angry, yearning, confused, you don't have a problem, you have a life. Being human is not hard because you are doing it wrong. It's hard because you're doing it right. You will never change the fact that being a human is hard, so you have to change the idea that it was ever supposed to be easy. That's from Glennon Doyle. It's from her newest book. Judy says, oh my goodness, even after 7 years, I still think I'm doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. It is hard because it is hard. And being a travel entrepreneur is really, really, really hard. I was playing music before everybody kind of got in here, and I was ending it with It Hurts to Be Human by Pink, because it really does hurt to be a human being. Being fully human is really, really hard. It requires total vulnerability. But you have to remember a couple of things. One, we were given the range of all the feelings in this world for a reason. Sadness, happiness is just one emotion. And a lot of our universe tries to teach us that the goal of life is to be happy, but I think the goal of this life is to live and live into all of the emotions. And there's not just one emotion, happiness. You're not supposed to feel just one thing all the time. There are neutral feelings, there are sad feelings, there are angry feelings, there are all of these feelings. And we are taught a lot of times to stuff your feelings down and dull it, dull it, dull it, dull it, dull it. And it really, really effing sucks sometimes. But when we are looking, but there's so much of this life, especially before these last couple of weeks, where we are throwing ourselves into the busyness of life, and we throw ourselves into food and booze and snark and just scrolling through life. All of those are distractions from the hard stuff. And here's the thing that I want to challenge you. It is hardest for people that are doing it right. And it is hardest because it is hardest for the person in the arena. When you think of a sporting event, the spectators, that's an easy game for them. But the person in the arena, the person actually jumping into this entrepreneurial journey, the person that's actually in this business, that's why it's hardest. That's why Teddy Roosevelt wrote that man in the arena speech. It is not the person on the sidelines that counts. It is the man in the arena whose sweat is mirrored with blood. And I butcher that every time, but you get the gist. It has nothing to do with everything around you. It has everything to do with you. And it is anything worth doing with any kind of victory is hard at first, because we as human beings, we're not just innately born with all of the knowledge of the world. I don't know about you guys, but I never got my manual to life, and I'm betting that neither did you. So it's okay if it's hard. We can do hard things. And years ago, this became my family's mantra. My daughter has special needs, and a couple of years ago, we had introduced the ketogenic diet, a medical keto diet for her full time. And keto diets are very binary. You either are in ketosis or you're not. And so it's not a matter of, oh, we will just kind of sort of eat keto all the time. It has to be 100% of the time, all the time. It's a medical keto diet. So her food is measured and weighed to the gram and proportionally ratioed exactly by a diet and a plan set by her nutritionist. It takes a lot of thought process and a lot of mental energy and a lot of work to get through this. At the same time, during that time, my husband had been an 11-year Army officer, and we had made the decision to get out of the military, and which was a really scary transition for all of us, because it meant not just switching jobs, but having to relocate around the country. And at the time, we had no idea where we would end up. It meant giving up a lot of security and comfort of what we knew day to day. And so together we kind of came across this family mantra: we can do hard things. And I remember just bolstering into the year last year with this like full force. And somebody who I had really admired and really had looked up to told me, I think you have a mindset lead, because why does anything have to be hard? It doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy. And if you just had the mindset that you thought it was easy, then it wouldn't be hard. And that really crushed me for the longest time. And I really let it get in my head. And I really thought to myself, yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe I do have a mindset lead, and maybe I am jacked up. But the more and more that I kind of start growing into being a fuller version of myself, and I start to know and ground myself really, really well, I know that it's not wrong. I know that it's not difficult to I know that it's not me that has a mindset lead, and I know that it's not hard because I'm doing it wrong. It's hard because this life is hard. Travel entrepreneurship is hard, you guys. Let's just set that right now. And it's hard for everybody. Not everybody knows how to run all of their marketing plans. Not everybody graduated with an MBA and understands all those crazy Excel worksheets that Ashley is such a genius at putting out to everybody. Not everybody is born with all this knowledge of how to do this. We have to learn how to do these things, but we can do hard things. I don't think it starts with a belief that it's not hard and therefore that's what you can overcome it. I think it starts with the belief that you can figure it out. Everything is figure outable. Quote my girl Marie Forleo one more time. Everything is figure outable. Everything can be achieved. Everything can be figured out. And Lord, you know, with the God's graces of YouTube these days, almost everything can be figured out by watching a YouTube video or a quick Google search on the internet. It's just about the ability to think that you can do the hard thing. And here's the other side of that. Don't take away the fact that it's hard. If it was easy, you guys, everybody would be doing this. If it was easy to have $1 million in sales, every travel entrepreneur would have $1 million in sales. It is not easy to do those things. It is hard. There is a reason in the Bible, he says, good. Now I'm blanking on that one. I started going a really good route, but it says, but at the end of the day, we are rewarded for the good work, the good works that we do. I'm going to go back. I'm going to put this in the group and figure out the exact Bible verse because I had it and now it's just poof, went away. This is my life on coronavirus as well. So at the end of the day, it is not that we are just given things in life. I think that you have to have the belief that it is possible. I think that envisioning those things in yourself are super important. But at the end of the day, it still takes hard work to get there. It still takes an exercise of your mind, and you have to flex that muscle against every other memory that against all the other muscle memory that you've ever had in your life to stay safe and familiar. Because the thing about it is, familiarity is comforting to us. Familiarity is safe. That's what our body and our evolution tell ourselves. But if you can believe that you can do hard things, I really think that you can be unstoppable in this business, and not just in this business, but in your life. Ashley McCoy chimed in here and said, it's empowering to say you can do hard things. It's not a mindset lead. And she's absolutely right. It's empowering when you can figure out something. Even in your business, how many of you have had something that you've been trying to tweak and trying to figure out and try to play with in your business, and when you do figure out, that feeling of pride that you figured out that thing, whether it was linking up an automation in your autoresponder, whether it was setting up that Amazon S3 download packet, that was my big victory a couple weeks ago. It took a couple of YouTube videos and a couple of articles to figure out how it worked, but gosh darn it, I finally did. And was able to upload that travel agent survival guide to make it an easy download for the audience that we were trying to serve, right? It is hard to set up all your forms and things like that. It's hard to deal with difficult clients sometimes. It has been really hard to call clients and cancel trips, rebook people, and make the shifts. But I think you have to have the ability. We can do hard things. Lie number 2. And there were so many things about this that I tried to succinct it to money is limited for myself and my clients. But let's take a step back from that. Money is limited. If Wendy is on here, I'm going to say it even though she's been driving nuts by it. It's kind of about having an abundance mindset. And it's not because let me back up here. When it comes to money, we have this really funny view of the way money works. And it all comes back to our childhood. Our family of origin really defines how we see money and how we perceive money. And when it comes to being an entrepreneur, it it can manifest in a couple of ways. One, it can manifest in I don't charge service fees because I'm brand new and I don't feel that I'm worth it. It comes out in imposter syndrome. And I want to tell you right now, it is a pleasure to work with you. If you could just really, if you could really open up with the mantra every single day, it is a pleasure to work with me. It is a pleasure to work with me. Say it again. It is a pleasure to work with me. You offer something to this world that nobody else can. You are a rock star in your business. And I can't think of that to be untrue for a single person that I can see attending this session right now. I know that you are all fabulous in your businesses. And so if you can just think about it in terms like that, of course you should charge service fees from day one. Maxed out as much as you can, because you are confident in the ability and the services that you are providing for your clients. Money is limited for myself. When it comes, let's talk about investments. Ashley and I did a whole course, it was our third session on Monday, about what it costs to be a travel advisor. I cannot begin to tell you how many advisors will bulk on a $39 a month fee to schedule an to schedule social media. SmarterCube's $39 a month, or will bulk at a $500 booth investment, or at running Facebook ads at $1 a day, but will expect a client to pay them $10,000 for a vacation. The two don't add up. If you're not willing to invest in yourself because you don't feel confident in your business, then a client probably will not invest with you. It's really tough too, because entrepreneurship is hard and we all come from different budgets and backgrounds, and we have different risk factors that we're willing to put into this. But at the end of the day, I think it's a matter of having those foundations that we had talked about earlier this week, where you know your ideal client so well and you know your business so well and you are confident in your business and in your marketing strategies, and then be willing to invest in that. There will be some testing that's involved. There is a little bit of risk factor there, but at the end of the day, you got to know what but at the end of the day, you got to take some risk when it comes to it. And then money is limited for my clients. A lot of travel advisors plan vacations out of their own pocketbook, and that is not the way to go. It's twofold too, right? I see a lot of travel advisors that complain about clients' budgets. They want to do a 2-week trip to Europe on $6,000, and that's ridiculous. Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'll challenge you this. Most travelers don't know how much travel costs. And so it is up to you, because you are the expert, to stand firm on your ground and say, if you want to do all the things that you're asking me to do, give them a realistic budget of what that looks like. 9 times out of 10, they will come up in their budget, or they're willing to cut back or cut down on what it is they're trying to do. But you have to stand in but instead of complaining about their budget or trying to kill yourself to make it work, it is your job to say, hey, that won't work. Because here's the thing, if they were to try and put that trip into an online into an OTA booking system like Expedia or Travelocity, Expedia and Travelocity is not going to negotiate or barter with them to get their prices down. It is what it is. It should be the same thing for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you should never try to make your clients' budgets work, and it doesn't mean that you can't work with them on some things, but it also means giving up some of their expectations out of it. They can't have private group tours the entire time that they travel. The other side of it is that I see a lot of travel agents be given a really healthy budget, and then they try really hard to whittle it and work it down. Why? The client gave you the budget and they gave you what you want. And because we feel uncomfortable with that level of money, we think that the client would too, and we think we're doing them a service by saving them money. But at the end of the day, unless you're a sleazy travel advisor, you are really working with their budgets to give them an experience that they like, love, and enjoy. So, and those experiences, as we know, cost money. I could go for another hour on this one, but we're going to kind of wrap it up with that. Line number 3. This is one of my favorites. No one else in my industry is doing this, so it must be bad. It must be a bad idea. And I was listening again to another podcast. I love my podcasts. Ben Horowitz was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and this was his quote, and I just thought it was so perfect. I jumped right into our kinship vacations group, and I played this for them. But this is the essence of being an entrepreneur. If you have an idea and most people say, that was a great idea, chances are it's probably the wrong idea because it's too obvious. If you have an idea and people say that's a terrible idea or we've never seen that work, chances are you're onto something. Entrepreneurship is betting on yourself and betting on your ideas. If you have done all the work, you've thought it through, you understand the customer psychology, you understand what the competition is doing, and you have come to the conclusion that it is different than what someone else has thought, it's probably the best thing that you can do. Most of entrepreneurship, you guys, is taking risks and betting on yourself. And the thing that I see as this relates to the travel industry that is so prevalent is that people are scared to niche, and they're scared to niche down really, really specifically because of the risk and because they don't see other people doing it. Or I see everybody trying to follow the exact same niche. And here's the thing, you guys, it's been done. It's already taken up, and it's been done so much that it has been exhausted by your audience, and they don't want to see that anymore. And the biggest example I can give is every time somebody goes to a travel conference, somebody gets up there and says, we should all be trying to pitch wine river cruises to your local winery and your local tasting room. I see it all the time, every single time. And then 1,000 agents leave that conference and they try to replicate that at their home, and it falls flat. And it falls flat for 2 reasons. One, unless you're a wine sommelier or a wine enthusiast, you're not bringing the passion and the love to it that you thought you were. 2, it's already been done, or they're already partnered with somebody else. Or 3, somebody has tried to partner with them and that person has no interest in doing it, and it's not your ideal client. You come off as inauthentic because you have no passion for the space in it. It was just the bright idea and you thought it would be a get rich quick thing. There is no get rich quick in entrepreneurship, unfortunately. There were a ton of people when I came out and I said, I want to be the girlfriend getaway guru. I want to do girlfriend getaways. I had a lot of people in our industry tell me it absolutely wouldn't work. And again, I let people get into my head because I thought they were older, more seasoned, more experienced in this industry, and they knew what they were talking about. You guys, they could not have been more dead wrong. When I finally went all in with my niche, and really with all of my marketing strategies straight to my ideal client, it started taking off, and it didn't take that long to do it. Marketing is a long game, but at the end of the day, you have to be willing to go all in and bet on yourself and bet on your ideas. It's work. Let's see, I've got some comments here. Judy says, that's how I feel about Disney. And Dina says, it's true. I sometimes feel this way with special needs travel, but I am truly sticking to my gut and going down this path. And Ashley says, yes, the wine JV groups are so overplayed now. Not to say you can't make it happen, but it's not a guarantee like some people out there in the travel industry say it is. I think it works if you truly have a relationship with a vineyard or a winery or a tasting room, because you are a client, they know, like, and trust you already, and you have cultivated that relationship already, and then it can be pitched. But I think that a lot of joint venture group opportunities have been overplayed. The last big one out of the travel conference I heard of was pickleball. Somebody said that they got really great luck with pickleball group, and out of nowhere, all these travel agents who had never even heard of pickleball were out there trying to pitch to their local pickleball group. That's not the model that works. It's not about finding a niche or finding something that works. And now we're getting into like marketing stuff, but it's not about finding a niche and trying to fit through a Judy says, ugh, my sandals BTN keeps pushing pickleball groups on me. If you are a pickleball player and a pickleball enthusiast, or you have a good relationship with somebody on a pickleball team, by all means, go for it. But again, it all comes down to marketing and talking and connecting to your ideal client, not to a formula or to a business model that you're trying to fit into your world. That's not, it's the opposite. And here's the thing, so much of what we're going to do in the industry in the next few years, it's going to be a risk, because so much of what's been done in this industry is there because it's been done that way for the last 30 years. We give formulas that were applied to brick and mortars or were applied to early agents in this digital space. And now we've seen a huge jump in the last couple of years. But I think that coronavirus is going to make that be a bigger jump going forward. Again, it comes back to that mindset of being able to pivot, be resilient in this industry. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be able to be flexible. You need to be able to find the pillars of people that you can really lean on. And it's the other side of this is that it has to be the belief that you can do hard things. You have to take this belief that when it comes to your marketing strategies going forward, I think that there needs to be more emphasis in the digital marketing space. I do. And it's something that people in our industry don't talk about. It's starting to be talked about. You can see the Richard D'Ambrosios and you can see the Carmen Perez's out there and the Sandra McLemores starting to talk about it. You see a lot of resistance to it as well. I think that if you're going to be successful in entrepreneurship, especially in times of coronavirus, it's time to get really comfortable in the digital space, which means get comfortable with conversations about split testing, conversations about ad buys, conversations about target audiences and things like that, so that you can have effective ad buys. And it'll take different business models. Like, I see so many people out there, and I think it's amazing, wanting to do the wellness retreat model, which absolutely has potential, especially again, coming out of this coronavirus time. How many people are going to be wanting and needing a retreat and a break away from their families? Families go on vacation to connect and to reconnect and love one another. They're getting a lot of reconnection time right now. So what a cool opportunity for all those models out there for retreats where you are the group leader, giving out that thing that's leading the charge on that next thing, whether it's an adventure retreat, a wellness retreat, volunteerism and a give back retreat is a cool model that I've talked to another agent about. A lot of senior people in the industry tell those people that it's not, that there's no market to what they're doing, because one, it's not a get rich quick scheme. To be able to be a group leader in what you want to do, you have to cultivate the relationships first. So it is a long game. And two, it's not a formula that they have seen work, that JV formula, time and time again. So again, it really comes down to pivoting and really going down in there. Judy says, okay, it's making me crazy. What does your shirt say? Oh, Ashley had these made up. It says Milspo and Girlcation Travel Pro. So Ashley had these made up for our team a couple of years ago for Christmas. A lot of fun. So you're very welcome. Ask away. I'm an open book. Which kind of goes to line number 4. If I don't take every client or every trip, I won't be successful. So it's really common early on in our travel careers. We want the experience. We do take on different trips. My very first client was a couple going to Hawaii, and then it was a couple going to New Zealand. Not my niche and not my ideal clients either. And I did it to get my feet wet. And the thing about it is why it's so important to niche early on in your travel career is because, one, if you're really, really good at what you do, they tell their friends. And if you're already working, and I can guarantee you their friends are not your ideal client either. Your ideal client is not friends always with your ideal client, because you've given them a certain experience that they really enjoyed. The second thing to remember is that if you do take every trip and everything that comes your way, you're not going to work with the people that you're passionate with. You're not going to come from a place of inspiration. And when Dina says, yeah, I kept working with people I wasn't passionate about to work with, it absolutely comes across in the way you communicate with them and in your marketing. If you say, and so many people do this from a fear mindset, right? They're scared because if they say no to this client, they don't know when the next one's going to come in. I think, again, it comes back down to that belief and that long-term mindset that if you are speaking and you're doing all of the things intentionally in your business that you can, your ideal client's going to pop up. I promise you. You have to keep saying it, and it's going to feel like a broken record to you. I serve XYZ client. And again, when you say less, what you get is more. And I talked about this in my talk on Tuesday. All my talks are running together. I've worn makeup every day this week because I've gone live in some capacity this week somewhere. When you say less, what you get is more. You get more ideal clients, there's more money, and you get more free time, and you are not bogged down or pulled in a million different directions. You have clear focus on who you're working with. Your job actually becomes easier because when you're working with your ideal client in a specific type of trip, you already have cultivated relationships with a certain supplier or suppliers generally. You have, and so you know your go-to people. When so-and-so comes to me for a Napa trip, I know who my partner is for that. I know without a doubt who, no questions asked, who I'm going to be working with. It's an easy relationship. It's a relationship I've cultivated. It's easier for my supplier. It's easy for me. And it's a lovely experience for my client because I have promoted this kind of trip to my ideal client over and over again. They knew exactly what they were getting with when they agreed to work with me. Saying yes to too much leaves you stressed out, frustrated, resentful, and in that state, you are not delivering your best work. And I don't care how much commission is in it for you. It's going to be a failure almost every time. I have felt this in my soul planning trips that I wish I had not planned. There is no amount of money or commission that is worth showing up to work every day to feel that way. I'd rather just be an employee somewhere else, but I'm not. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in business for myself because of certain choices that I made. So don't do it, guys. Don't take every client or trip because you are going to be successful. Try to figure out a way to step out of that fear zone. And it's really, really tough to step out and put yourself and be vulnerable and put yourself out in that arena. The last lie, and there were so many different directions we could have gone with this, you guys. Other travel advisors are my competition. This is a good one. I have been so blessed because I started my journey in this industry with a really amazing collaborative group of people who I don't see as competition. I see them as collaborative colleagues, and they are my support system and they are my help. There is a lot of business to go around. Travel is a really large industry. It might be struggling right now, but it's going to come back. And here's the thing. Travel advisors are not your competition, and they shouldn't be for a couple of different reasons. One, you should be niched. And most of us, our ideal client will have some overlap, but not always. Second, even if you are, say, a Disney agent and you have other Disney agents out there, there is a lot of business and a lot of market for Disney to go around. At the end of the day, you don't need nor want 10,000 paying clients all the time. You physically yourself could not handle it. You'd have to refer that business out to a colleague that you trusted. You would have to collaborate with one another. And then you'll have clients that come to you where that is not your niche. That is not your ideal client, but you know what? It is somebody's. A Disney family is not my ideal client, but it is my buddy Dina's. And I'm happy to pass that business off to her every single time because of two reasons. One, because she's niched in Disney and Hawaii, I know that there's very little chance that she's going to be stealing that client from me. In fact, I know Dina well enough to know that there's no chance for that. I also know when she's I also know that because she is a Disney and a Hawaii specialist, if that's what my clients want, they're going to get a better experience going through her than they will through me for that trip. And at the end of the day, my values and what's important to me is take care of my client and give the best service for my client. And my client will remember that. Second of all, or third, I guess, now I'm at third. If I know that at the end of the day, reciprocity, it'll come right back to me. When Dina has a girls group that we'd really like to do, we have worked to collaborate with each other on Disney girl groups. But also, if it's a girlfriend getaway to Dubai or someone else, she's been happy to refer that client to me. It's scary to do that sometimes because we don't know what kind of relationship or where it's going to come back to it. But I think at the end of the day, if you can find a community of travel advisors that are willing to collaborate with each other, there is enough business for all of us to go around. There is enough. And so I think it's, again, not about taking as big of a slice of the pie as possible. Because again, it goes back to that last point. That's where you see a lot of burnout. You see people stretched too thin, going a million different directions. But if you can collaborate with agents and you can find a supportive community, one, you are always working in your ideal client space, which is an amazing, inspired place to be. And two, you will always have business referrals going in and out, in and out, in and out. And Ashley said, there's nothing saying you can't work out a referral agreement, fee or commission split for those kinds of situations. Absolutely. And I think it comes down to what you're most comfortable with. And I think it's interesting though, too, because there's something about the fee or commission split, and I have mixed feelings about it because I've even myself gone back and forth on it, right? There's just a little bit of fear sometimes every time you pass off that client that you're missing out on a piece of that pie. I would almost start to challenge people going forward that it is not about trying to keep the piece of the pie. Again, I think it's about making more pies. I think it is about encouraging and growing awareness of our services, that travel advisors are thriving, that they are out there, that it is a huge benefit to use one, and to keep building each other up. There are certainly situations where a referral agreement is absolutely necessary and it would behoove both parties. And I think it all comes down to a case-by-case basis. And like Lorelei said, lots of people want to go to Disney. So Disney agents shouldn't be competitive with one another. There's a lot of people that want to go. There's a lot of business that goes around. I think it's about using your collective voice to tell people why it's important to use a travel advisor in general. Judy says, there is an unlimited pie. It's a great short read for this is The Story of the Monk and the Merchant. People believe there's only one pie that they must share, but the truth is there are unlimited pies. Absolutely. We often think in this industry that we should be cutthroat or things like that. And the fact of the matter is we don't. So I agree. I'm going to be looking that up as well. So guys, we've kind of come to an end. I really want to circle back to reemphasize the point that we can do hard things, because I think that's the underlying message with almost all of these things. It's hard to charge fees. It's hard to work outside of our comfort zone. It's hard to live outside of our comfort zones. But I really think that's what it means to be human. And I think at the end of the day, when you go through this, we're all going to be getting a lot of collective grit and go through a collective grief. Because that's kind of the whole point of doing all of this. It's so important to go through things with the belief that you can get through it. And I think if you can cultivate and work on that muscle, almost all else follows, because the goal in life is not necessarily to be happy. It's to live. I think the goal is to live wholehearted. And I'm going to credit Brene Brown, and she gives 10 pillars for wholehearted living. And I think those are the guideposts for living a life. And in those guideposts, and I'll read them off here to you in a second, but those guideposts are not about always being happy-go-lucky and having the perfect attitude all of the time. I think it's cultivating, again, a wholeheartedness. So the 10 guideposts for that are one, cultivating authenticity, letting go of what people think. So being authentic and putting yourself out there and not caring about how other people are going to judge you for that. And the next one is cultivating self-compassion. So letting go of perfectionism. It's really, really tough. Again, especially as a travel entrepreneur, we want to do everything perfectly, and oftentimes we find ourselves in perfection paralysis. And it's super, super hard. 3, cultivating a resilient spirit, letting go of numbing and powerlessness. Super hard and super important during this time to remember that, you guys. A lot of us are going to try and numb with food and booze, and I'm right there with you because I've been the chocolate chip cookie queen. But it's really funny, and I listened to this talk years ago with Tara Brach, who is a mindfulness meditation expert, and she tells the story of Buddha and Mara. And Mara is the god of mischief, of troubles, of problems, and Buddha sits very, very quietly and says, "I see you, Mara, let's have tea." And he invites Mara, the mischief, the uncomfortableness, all the bad things in our life, to sit down with that uncomfortable, with the negativity, with the bad thing, and sit in it for a minute, which is a really important lesson for us all to kind of try to learn. Cultivating gratitude and joy. That was supposed to be the other topic there that for whatever reason didn't get updated on the slide. But letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark. I think it's super important right now, and in your travel business and your daily lives, to cultivate a gratitude practice, to have something that can ground you and give you perspective all the time. And there's nothing that gives you perspective more than gratitude. And it can be very, very simple. 5 things you're grateful for today. The more specific you are, the more beneficial this is to you. They say it takes 28 days to break a habit, or to make a habit, or break one, I guess, but 28 days to make a habit. There's 28 days if you start today in April, and April's pretty much been canceled. So you don't got a lot to do anyway. So make this be the new habit that you create and make. 5 things every day that you're grateful for. It's a huge benefit in your business, in your life, and everything else. Because again, you are the foundation of your business. And if you're not doing well, everything else will follow. 5 is cultivating intuition and trusting faith, letting go of the need for certainty. Super important right now, right? Because nothing is certain, and certainly nothing's going to be certain in our travel businesses for a while. Cultivating creativity, letting go of comparison. You can't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 15. And all of us have a different chapter 1 that looks different. Cultivating play and rest, letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol, and productivity is self-worth. There is a certain amount of work and hard work that it takes to be in this business, but you do not need to hustle and work 90-hour weeks to make this happen. Cultivating calm and still, letting go of anxiety is a lifestyle. So a lot of us like to talk about our negative feelings all the time as if like they are more hardened than the other person. And sometimes it's okay to be calm and still and in the moment. Cultivating meaning work, letting go of self-doubt and supposed to, goes back to what I talked about earlier. Entrepreneurship is putting yourself out there, standing anchored in what you know to be true, and trying to just go for it. And when you can do that, it's meaningful to you and you come from a place of inspiration. And then cultivating laughter, song, and dance, letting go of being cool and always in control. And again, it's about being real with your audience, and it goes back to authenticity, but also let yourself have a little bit of fun. In fact, try and schedule it in every day, especially now. But there's going to be times in this entrepreneurial journey, and I'm sure there has been times where it sucks and it's hard, and we feel like the thing to make it better is we're just not working enough, or we're just not smart enough. And the fact of the matter is, if we just give ourselves a minute to be light, it can be a huge turning point in our businesses. So that's it for mindset today, you guys. It's a journey. It's not perfect. There's not a destination. It is about flexing that muscle as much as you can over and over again, because strength is strength in your mind, strength in your arm. It's the same thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. I used to have a lot more of a toned physique, but I'm not working those muscles anymore, so they go away. Same thing for your mind. You got to work it every single day. I hope this has been very helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to please throw them in the chat box. But I hope that you're taking a minute this weekend to be intentional with your lives, to be intentional with your moments, to try and live into that wholehearted living. Know that it's okay to be sad sometimes. It's okay to be anxious. Find your community, find your support, lean in on that. Find your coping mechanisms, because that's how we're going to get through all of this. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will catch you guys later. Bye.